for Integrated Warfare Services. And it was there that I began doing work in diversity and equity and inclusion. The Navy was facing a turn where we were starting to see a shift in the hiring numbers and a more urgent need in being more equitable and inclusive in our policies. And that was the work that I was a huge part of during my tenure there. I came home in 2013. I grew up here. I went to St. Mary's. I graduated from the University of Memphis. My family's from here. My dad is an accountant and worked at Lemoyne, worked at the Civil Rights Museum. My mother is a small business owner as well, and actually one of the Memphis State 109, so I get my activism honestly. When I returned home to Memphis, I first worked for Shelby County Schools in new teacher orientation and hiring, as well as licensure. And in that first year working with SCS, we were faced with vacancies upwards towards 200 teachers per day missing from classrooms. And those numbers are still the same today. Any given day, anywhere from 100 to 200 teachers are missing from classrooms. And we've not yet figured out, as a city, as a county, as a school system, how to recruit and retain teachers. And so after a year working with Shelby County Schools, I was invited by Teach for America to be the new director of diversity and to train incoming teachers in cultural competence, and especially in deepening their commitment to the city of Memphis. I've done that work for the past 4 years now. I'm now the managing director of external affairs for Teach for America, working to continue to connect our region with the city of Memphis, with the programs, with the leaders, and with the people who are on the ground working for our kids every day. And now I'm also a county commissioner for District 7, a lot of which was mentioned in my bio. Thank you. And I am the chair of the Law Enforcement and Courts Committee, a chairship which I requested in an effort to bring reform to policing and to criminal justice in Shelby County. I was especially focused on juvenile justice reform. As you may know, we have had a lot of disparity in the way that children of color, especially black males, are treated in juvenile courts and in juvenile detention. Up until this past October, we were under federal monitoring to ensure equity in juvenile systems. Due to the leadership of Trump and the outgoing leadership of Mayor Luttrell, that protection was taken away from our county. And so I, along with our chairman and others, have worked to make sure that there's still some type of oversight for our kids that find themselves in the juvenile justice system. When I talk with kids in our juvenile justice system, a lot of the crimes that we're seeing are small crimes of theft. They're taking iPads, but an iPad is worth almost $2,000 when you look at how much it costs to buy one of those. And that makes the crime even more serious than what a kid can even wrap their head around. So they're thinking, you know, I grabbed a couple of these because I was tired of not having anything, and now I'm facing 3 to 5 years in jail. Not realizing what they've done and what the real cost of the items they covet are. And so I've been working, I visit the jails, I go out to Jail East a lot and work with women there. I'm working with the Mullen Station, formerly known as Penal Farm, for repairs there. It is a dilapidated building that nobody should be housed in, and there's no money in our budget that's been allocated ever for repairs there. And so what I want us to see is a place where we are looking at people who are in the criminal justice system as people. And even if they are facing 5 to 6 years out east, that they are still given basic services, that they're still able to eat in a cafeteria that's clean and a kitchen that works. And so those are the services that as a county commissioner, I have prioritized. One of the things that I'm most proud of in this last year is that we were able to take away the cost of youth offenders to call their families. So before, every call cost families when their children called from juvenile jails, and now those calls are free, reducing a burden of the cost of those calls and allowing youth to stay connected with their homes. This also has an impact on recidivism because we often find that this connection that grows once our kids enter into juvenile jails makes them even more likely to recommit crimes at a future time. So why am I running for mayor right now? I'm running on a slogan, we can't wait. And I have a vision of equity and opportunity for Memphis. When I looked at the leadership of this city, we had our mayor, who was city councilman for 12 years, and has now been mayor for 4 years. 16 years as a leader in this city, but very little commitment to the thing that matters most in Memphis, and that's the people. Very little commitment to the sidewalks and the streets in the neighborhoods where people have the least access to opportunity. 0% of the budget goes to education. 63% of the budget goes to public safety. We can double and triple the number of officers on the street, but by the time we do that, it's too late. We have to look at intervention and prevention of crimes. And that means that we have to reinvest in our neighborhoods, we have to reinvest in opportunities for our youth, and we have to reinvest in education. I'm not proposing a blank check to any school system, but I want the city to begin to fill in the gap. We have about $60 million deferred maintenance bill. So you've heard the big stories. Kirby gets closed for a rat infestation. But you probably didn't know that during the winter, every day at least one school had to shift classrooms or close the entire building because of a lack of heating. That kids are not having a full spring break or staying longer in the summer because during the winter, they couldn't be in school every day because the building could not keep them warm. And sometimes the ceilings are so wet and moldy, it's unsafe for them to be in there completely. That the seniors at Kingsbury High are petitioning for doors on their bathrooms. And when I talked to the seniors who wrote the petition, they said, we feel like we're already in jail and nobody cares about us. And that's why I'm running, because I don't believe that we can afford to commit, I don't believe we can afford to commit the mistakes of the past, nor can we continue on the basic path that we're on today. So this is a campaign for the future of Memphis, and I really hope today to ask for your support and your endorsement of our vision and belief that we can't wait. Thank you.
Okay, can you tell us something about your thoughts on the current state of public transportation in Memphis and what your plans would be? Excuse me.
So there's about a $25 million deficit for MATA right now, and that's just to get MATA to where it needed to be probably about a decade ago. That doesn't include modernization, that doesn't include signs on poles, that doesn't include technology updates or even shelters at bus stops. So my plan would be for the city to work with the county to make sure that we can get that amount of money, not in a trickle down. So I believe we added $2 million to the budget this time. But we also are funding a $60 million parking garage, right? So your budget shows what you prioritize. The tax breaks you give show who you prioritize. And so what I would do is put transportation first. Transportation is an important part of my platform. I think it's important for youth. I think it's important for workers that we improve our transportation system and the city and county come together to fill that $25 million deficit sooner than later, while also looking forward to make sure that we do the technology updates that are needed for the system to connect our entire city.
Okay, good. And so what is your strategy to win the race?
So our strategy is to run a very aggressive ground game, and that is it consists of a couple things. So right now, my team is canvassing in Binghamton, and I'm here with y'all. We're live streaming and we're taking photos and we're reaching people every day. Before I was here, I was with the Teamsters. And last night, I met with the Collective, a group of young Black artists who, when I met with them last night, said that no one had ever asked them to be a part of the political process in their history as young adults. So my vision of winning is for us to reach everyone and for us to increase the turnout of voters at least by 10%, and for a lot of those voters that we increase that turnout to be voters who vote for us. And we're gonna knock on every door we can. There's 116 precincts that we need to reach. About 110,000 people, that's a little higher than the actual number, but between 105 and 110,000 people turned out to vote, of almost 380,000 people. So there's a lot of room to grow. And so we wanna grow voter turnout and also run a very strong and strategic grassroots campaign.
So I'll open it up to others to ask questions.
You mentioned that Kirby closed because of lack of heat and air and whatever, and you all often hear of other schools like that. I don't know if anybody in this room knows that within the last month, Booker T. Washington had issues where their high school, the junior high is on one side and the high is on the other side. The high school side flooded. So rather than incorporate these children into the junior high, they just let them go for the day. Every day, they had to show up every day or not show up, but they were out of school for over a week, this close to the end of the school year. Did the media, did anybody even hear about this? Does anybody even know this happened? This is in the last month.
It's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
And I only know because I'm at Lemoyne On and, we have several of their students who like to hang out.
Yeah.
So every day, these students will show up at Lemoyne. I'm like, why aren't you in school?
Right.
Oh, they're still flooded.
No, it's interesting because I was at an event this week where they were talking about the Booker T. Washington basketball team, and that's all I saw. I didn't know that no one mentioned anything about that.
Right.
But I think that when we're looking at, and I talked about this earlier today, workforce development is also education. You can't just put money into developing adults and you've ignored them for K through 12. Right? And I think that a lot of us experience youth who enter the workforce and are ill prepared for a day-to-day job because they weren't invested in working day-to-day in high school. And not through any fault of their own, but our own disinvestment in their education. And so that's why I believe that we have to figure out how to fill in the gap financially. If we're saying that 0% of the $750 million that we have budgeted to spend on the city per year can go to education, we're saying that 0% of our kids matter. And then we have situations like that don't get, Booker T. Washington has no reason for that to get put out, right?
Right.
They have no reason for us to know that. It's not going to help anyone, right, in their minds. It's going to give them negative press. It's going to give the schools negative press. And so no one's going to hear about that. No one's going to be able to help. But if we're helping in advance, maybe we have less situations like that.
Yeah, my point is that there's, so these students all lost instructional time.
Right.
So are they going to have to make this up? And on the back end, then how do you all of a sudden say, well, students at Booker T. Washington have to go to school for an extra week or two.
Right.
When the parents hopefully were aware, but
Yeah.
I
I don't know what the ruling would be, but I could almost imagine if you say you've got an extra 2 weeks, but the rest of the city's out of school, one, they're not going to hold those 2 weeks, right? It's going to be whoever shows up, and two, they wouldn't be able to really hold those against those kids. You've lost those 2 weeks, really.
Yeah, I just had a question about, kind of related to public education question. We had the voucher vote, in the House and the Senate, right? Senate too yet? Or is it there?
I don't think it
And so one of the people that voted, in favor was a guy named Mark White, who's endorsed by our current mayor. And there was some pushback on social media against him, and there were some defenders of the mayor who said, you gotta play politics, he gave to him this and that. And I guess I just kind of, one of the things I just hadn't really thought of is, what do you think the role is for somebody like the mayor who he's not voting on it, right? But if you're in that position, how can you use your voice, in a sense to like influence the people that you've led your support behind? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're gonna say, well, so what? Like I supported him because, I have to deal with him. But here he is voting for something. You could call him the decisive vote, not to bury if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of elected officials didn't have an impact on that vote. Like, we couldn't go to Nashville and vote, but we spoke about it. We sent letters, we called, we supported the representatives and senators who were going to vote for it. We informed people about it. And I know that I'm gonna break, the fourth wall here, and mention LaMichael, because the mayor will use a bully pulpit to talk about his opponents, right? He will call all of us in or out or talk about what we're saying or not saying, but not use that same opportunity, right, to talk about the issues that are happening in the city. So, to me, whatever needs to happen is there needs to be a change at City Hall to someone who's going to use that bully pulpit to stand up for Memphis, right? The state of Tennessee is doing some really harmful stuff that's negatively impacting Shelby County and Memphis more than any other region in Tennessee. And if we don't have the right leadership in place that's going to use that pulpit and say, not here, right? So when Jeff Sessions came to Memphis, the mayor said, no, I've got to meet with him. Yeah, you have to, maybe you do. Maybe anyone would meet with the, Attorney General for the United States. But what do you do with that time? Why was that door closed? Why was the outcome of that meeting that we lost federal protection of juvenile court? I'm sure if any of the other candidates had been in that room with Jeff Sessions, it would have been more public and the outcome would have been different. So in a situation like that, I absolutely believe that it is imperative that the leadership of the city speaks out when they see a state government as dangerous as the one that we're under right now, coupled with a federal government that's as dangerous as the one we're under right now. You have to speak up for the people of the city. And I would.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.